You didn't just wake up one day and become the person you are. There is a reason you think the way you think, a reason certain things make you uncomfortable, a reason you react the way you do, a reason you sometimes struggle to trust people, a reason you need reassurance, a reason you find it difficult to ask for help, a reason you work so hard, a reason you sometimes pull away when someone gets too close, a reason you feel like you always have to be okay. And here's the part nobody really tells you. A lot of who you are today was built by things you didn't consciously choose. The way you were treated, the things you experienced, the things you were told, the things nobody told you, the moments you felt seen, the moments you felt ignored, the times you succeeded, the times you failed, the people who stayed, the people who left, the moments you felt safe, and the moments that taught you to protect yourself. All of these things left something behind, and whether you realize it or not, they became part of the person you're meeting in the mirror today. But I want you to understand something before we go any further. Your past may explain you. It does not have to control you, because there is a difference between understanding why you became who you are and deciding that you have to remain that person forever. So let's talk about how you became you. Think about a child. A child doesn't come into the world knowing that they are not enough. They don't come into the world thinking, I need everyone to approve of me. I shouldn't make mistakes. I have to be perfect. I shouldn't take up too much space. I need to keep everyone happy. Those beliefs are learned, and sometimes they're learned without anyone intentionally teaching them. Maybe you grew up in an environment where being praised happened mostly when you performed well, so you learned, if I do well, I'm worthy of approval. You were constantly compared to other people. And slowly, comparison became the way you measured yourself. Maybe you made a mistake and someone reacted harshly. So you learned to associate mistakes with danger, embarrassment, or rejection. Maybe you were the person everyone relied on, so you became incredibly independent. You learned how to handle things yourself. And eventually, asking for help started feeling uncomfortable. Maybe you were the quiet one. People made decisions around you. Your opinions weren't always taken seriously. So you learned to keep certain thoughts to yourself. Maybe you were the person who had to mature quickly. You learned responsibility early. You learned how to keep going. You learned how to carry things without complaining. And now, years later, people might look at you and say, wow, you're so strong. They might not understand that sometimes your strength came from learning that you didn't have another option. This is why your personality isn't just your personality. Some of it is adaptation. Some of the things you call just who I am might actually be things you learned because they once helped you navigate your environment. And this is where understanding yourself becomes powerful. Because you can't change something you believe is simply your identity. But when you realize, I learned this, you can also realize, I can learn something different about the way you communicate. Maybe you grew up around people who didn't talk about emotions. So when you're upset, you don't know how to explain what you're feeling. You just become quiet. You disappear, you say, I'm fine. Because you don't have emotions, but because you were never taught how to safely express them. Or maybe you learned that being vulnerable made you feel exposed. So now, whenever something matters deeply to you, you pretend it doesn't. You tell yourself you don't care. You act detached. You convince yourself you're independent. But underneath it, there may simply be a person who learned that needing people was dangerous. Look at your relationship with achievement. Maybe you were praised for being smart, so you started attaching your identity to being successful. And now, when you struggle, it doesn't just feel like, I struggled with something. Feels like, maybe I'm not good enough. Event becomes an identity. One failure becomes evidence. One rejection becomes a story about your entire future. But it doesn't have to be. You have to start separating what happened from what you decided what happened meant. Because those are two different things. Something happened. Then your mind created meaning around it. And sometimes that meaning was useful. Sometimes it helped you survive a particular season. But a belief that protected you at 15 may not be necessary at 25. A belief that helped you navigate one environment may become restrictive in another. And that's one of the most beautiful parts of growing up. You get to revisit the things you learned, not to blame yourself, not to blame everyone else, but to ask, do I still need this? Do I still need to believe I have to please everyone? Do I still need to hide when I'm struggling? Do I still need to prove myself? Do I still need to be perfect? Do I still need to assume that people will? I still need to believe that asking for help makes me weak, maybe not. But now you get to choose. And that's where your power begins. Because your past may have written the first chapters of your story, but it doesn't get to automatically write the ending. Think about how many versions of you have already existed. There was a version of you who didn't know what you know now. A version who had different friends, different dreams, different fears, different beliefs, different priorities, and then life happened, you learned, you changed, you lost things, you gained things, you experienced things, you became someone else, and you're still becoming. So when you look at yourself today, don't only ask, "What's wrong with me?" Ask, "What happened that taught me to become this way?" That question has so much more compassion inside it. Instead, "Am I so insecure?" You might ask, "When did I learn to doubt myself?" Instead, "Do I always need control?" Ask, "What taught me that I couldn't trust things to work out?" Instead, "Do I push people away?" Ask, "What made closeness feel uncomfortable?" Instead, "Am I so hard on myself?" Ask, "When did I start believing that kindness wouldn't motivate me but criticism would?" And sometimes the answers won't be obvious. That's okay. You don't have to uncover your entire history in one night. You simply have to become curious about yourself, because curiosity creates space, and space gives you the ability to choose. Maybe you've been telling yourself, "I'm just an anxious person. I'm just not affectionate. I'm just a perfectionist. I'm just independent. I'm just difficult. I'm just bad at relationships." But what if some of those labels are actually descriptions of strategies you learned? Maybe perfectionism was your way of trying to avoid criticism. Maybe independence was your way of avoiding disappointment. Maybe emotional distance was your way of protecting yourself. Maybe people-pleasing was your way of maintaining connection. Maybe always staying busy was your way of avoiding sitting with uncomfortable feelings. And once you understand the strategy, you can decide whether it still serves you. This doesn't mean everything you've experienced was good for you. Some experiences hurt. Some things were unfair. Some things should never have happened. And you don't have to pretend otherwise. Understanding how something shaped you is not the same as saying it was okay. You can acknowledge what happened without allowing it to become your entire identity. You can say, "Yes, this affected me. I'm still deciding what happens next." That's a powerful sentence, because sometimes people believe healing means becoming the person you would have been if nothing difficult had ever happened. But maybe that's not the goal. Maybe the goal is to become conscious of what happened, and then consciously decide what you carry forward. There are things you may want to keep: your resilience, your empathy, your ability to understand people, your independence, your determination, your creativity, your ability to adapt, your strength. And there are things you may decide to leave behind: the constant self-doubt, the need for approval, the fear of making mistakes, the belief that you have to do everything alone, the habit of shrinking yourself, the belief that rest has to be earned, the belief that your worth depends on what you achieve. You don't have to throw away your entire past to create a new future. You simply need to become selective about what comes with you. And this is where I want you to try something. Think about one behavior you don't like about yourself. Not your entire personality, just one pattern. Maybe you overthink. Maybe you procrastinate. Maybe you avoid difficult conversations. Maybe you constantly compare yourself. Maybe you struggle to say no. Maybe you don't celebrate your accomplishments. Instead of attacking yourself for it, ask, "What is this behavior trying to do for me?" Maybe procrastination protects you from the possibility of failing. Maybe comparison gives you a sense of where you stand. Maybe people-pleasing protects you from rejection. Maybe overthinking creates the illusion of control. Maybe avoiding conversations protects you from conflict. The behavior might not be helping you anymore, but it probably has a reason it exists. And once you understand the reason, you can replace the behavior with something healthier. Instead of, "I have to make everyone happy," you can learn, "I can care about people without being responsible for everyone's feelings." Of, "I have to do everything perfectly," you can learn, "I can do something well without requiring perfection." Of, "I can't trust anyone," you can learn, "I can build trust slowly and pay attention to how people treat me." Of, "I have to handle everything alone," you can learn, "Being capable doesn't mean I have to do everything by myself." This is how you begin changing, not by hating the old version of yourself, but by understanding her. The old version of you was working with the information she had. She made choices based on what she knew. She protected herself with the tools she had. And maybe some of those tools are outdated now. That's okay. You can put them down. You don't have to punish yourself for needing them once. You can simply say, "Thank you. You helped me get here, but I don't need to live this way forever." If you're finding yourself in this video, subscribe to Rukky Reflections, because this is what we're exploring here: the thoughts, patterns, and experiences that shape who we become, and what happens when we finally become conscious of them. Now, there's another important part of this. Your experiences don't only shape how you see yourself, they shape what you expect from life. If you've experienced rejection repeatedly, you may start expecting rejection. If you've experienced inconsistency, consistency might feel suspicious. If you've been criticized often, compliments might make you uncomfortable. If you've had people disappoint you, you might constantly prepare yourself for the next disappointment. And here's the strange thing. Sometimes we don't realize we're expecting the past to repeat itself. We just call it being realistic. I know how people are. It's better not to expect too much. I'm just protecting myself. Sometimes protection becomes a cage, because the mind loves familiarity, even when familiarity isn't good for us. Something can feel familiar without being healthy. That's why growth can feel uncomfortable. You're not necessarily doing something wrong. You're doing something different. You're teaching yourself that a different experience is possible. Maybe you've always been the person who says yes. The first time you say no, you might feel guilty. That doesn't necessarily mean you made the wrong decision. It may simply mean you're experiencing an unfamiliar version of yourself. Maybe you've always hidden your opinions. The first time you speak honestly, it might feel terrifying. Maybe you've always been hard on yourself. The first time you respond to a mistake with kindness, it might feel unnatural. Don't mistake unfamiliarity for wrongness. Sometimes you're simply meeting a new version of yourself. And that brings us to the most important question: if everything you've experienced helped shape who you are, who are you choosing to become now? Because there comes a point where awareness has to become choice. You can understand yourself forever. You can analyze your childhood. You can understand every pattern. You can identify every reason you behave the way you do. But eventually you have to ask, what am I going to do with this understanding? And the answer doesn't have to be dramatic. Start small. If you learn to ignore your needs, start listening to one. If you learn to constantly criticize yourself, practice speaking to yourself differently. If you learn to say yes automatically, pause before answering. If you learn to avoid difficult conversations, practice having one honest conversation. If you learn to measure your worth through achievement, allow yourself to rest without earning it first. If you learn to compare yourself to everyone around you, bring your attention back to your own path. Small choices repeated consistently become a new way of being. You don't wake up one morning as an entirely different person. You become different through tiny moments when you choose differently. You pause instead of reacting. You speak instead of hiding. You rest instead of forcing. You say no instead of automatically pleasing. You try again instead of deciding one failure defines you. You accept a compliment instead of explaining why you don't deserve it. And slowly, your brain begins learning. This is who we are now. That's transformation, not becoming someone completely new. Becoming more conscious about who you're already becoming. And perhaps the most important thing I want you to remember is this: you are not only the product of what happened to you, you are also the product of what you choose to do with what happened to you. Two people can experience similar things and respond differently. Two people can come from difficult circumstances and create completely different lives. That doesn't mean circumstances don't matter. They do. Your environment matters. Your experiences matter, the people around you matter, but they are not the entire story. There is also you, the part of you that can observe, learn, question, choose, change. Begin again, that part is still here. And maybe you've spent a lot of time asking, why am I like this? Try asking a different question. What am I learning about myself? Because you are still learning, you are still changing, you are still becoming. And that means you don't have to have yourself completely figured out. You can be a work in progress without treating yourself like a problem. You can have patterns without being your patterns. You can have a past without living inside it. You can have wounds without making them your identity. You can acknowledge what shaped you without allowing it to decide everything that comes next. So tonight, take some time to think about the person you are, not to criticize her. Get curious about her. Ask yourself, what did I learn about love? What did I learn about success? What did I learn about failure? What did I learn about asking for help? What did I learn about being seen? What did I learn about being myself? And then ask, which of these beliefs still serve me? And which ones am I ready to question? You might be surprised by what you discover. Maybe you've been carrying beliefs that were never really yours. Maybe they belong to an environment you grew up in. Maybe they belong to someone who hurt you. Maybe they came from a single experience that you allowed to define an entire part of your identity. But you get to question them now. You get to decide. And if you don't know who you are without those old patterns, That's okay. You don't need to know immediately. Sometimes becoming yourself begins with discovering who you are not. You are not every opinion someone had about you. You are not your worst mistake. You are not the rejection you experienced. You are not the opportunities you didn't receive. You are not the version of yourself that existed during your hardest season. You are not even limited to the version of yourself you currently understand. You are still becoming. And that is good news, because it means your story is not finished. Everything that happened to you may have left fingerprints on who you are, but fingerprints aren't handcuffs. Your past can be part of your story without being the author of every future chapter. So take what was useful. Learn from what hurt. Keep the wisdom. Release what no longer serves you. And give yourself permission to become someone your past couldn't have predicted. Someone calmer. Someone more honest. Someone more confident. Someone who knows when to stay and when to leave. Someone who can love without abandoning herself. Someone who can dream without constantly doubting herself. Someone who can make mistakes without destroying herself for them. Someone who can look at her past and say, I understand why I became you, but I get to decide who I become next. Maybe that's the real meaning of growth, not pretending the past didn't happen, not wishing you had lived a completely different life, but reaching a point where you can look at everything that shaped you and finally realize, I am allowed to shape myself too. If you take anything from this video, take this. Your past explains patterns. It doesn't have to become your prison. Your experiences shaped you, but they don't have to finish shaping you. And the person you are today deserves compassion for everything it took to get here. But the person you're becoming deserves your attention too, so start there. One belief, one habit, one reaction, one choice, one day at a time. And the next time you catch yourself saying, that's just how I am, pause, ask, or is that how I learned to be? Because sometimes the difference between those two questions is the beginning of an entirely different life. If this video made you understand yourself a little differently, like this video, share it with someone who might need to hear it, and subscribe to Rukky Reflections for more reflections on becoming, self-awareness, mindset, and creating a life that actually feels like yours. And remember, you are allowed to honor everything that made you, without being afraid to become someone new. Your past is part of you, but it is not all of you, and the story is still being written.